and a campaign donation needs to actually be for the campaign. It can't incidentally benefit the candidate, or all kinds of money is suddenly a crime. I mean, that would be a huge problem. That's a void for vagueness, unconstitutional interpretation application, as most legal scholars agreed later on in the John Edwards case was the case. But at least in each of those instances, you have a third party making a donation above the limit. That's technically the crime, if you will. That's not the case with Trump. If you're going to prosecute Trump, you're saying Trump gave too much to himself? That there is no limit. Trump can give as much as he wants to himself. He has a First Amendment right. The U.S. Supreme Court has already established that. You can't put a limit on how much you spend on your own candidacy. So that's why the Cohen prosecution is actually contrary. The whole basis of it was that Cohen made the payment and not Trump. And so you can't turn around and blame Trump for something you said Cohen was guilty of, because Cohen made the payment and not Trump. And I'll say, oh, you know what? All along it was actually Trump. This is why the Southern District of New York said the infamous, political, corrupt Southern District of New York even said there's no basis to indict Trump, because we couldn't have indicted Cohen if we could have indicted Trump, because we never could indict Trump under the theory. The only way we could indict Cohen was if Trump did not make the payment and did not authorize the payment, which, by the way, was Cohen's original position. Then he changed it. Now, apparently, he's saying, oh, this was all done at Trump's behest. But even if it was, that's not a crime. There's no crime in hush money payments. There's nothing illegal about it. Maybe DeSantis doesn't know that. Maybe they didn't teach that at Harvard Law while he was running down to Guantanamo to be the deep state's little bitch like he was for a decade. What Ron DeSantis did today is end his political career. It is over. There is no President DeSantis. You can hear it here first. It is done and is finished. It is gone. He is too politically incompetent to know how to handle something as easy to handle as this was. And instead, he had to take a little pot shot at Trump. Fair game to take pot shots at Trump. Trump's taking pot shots at him. This wasn't the time to do it. This was rally around against weaponized politicization of the prosecutorial process. And if he was smart, he would use his power as governor, which he does with a Florida resident being subject to another state's prosecution, to challenge it. Now, had he say, look, I'm not going to allow the extradition of Donald Trump from New York, and I'm going to challenge in court. Now, based on prior case law, Florida would have likely lost that. The U.S. courts have already ruled in other cases. They originally ruled one way, and then they came back and ruled another way, that basically no state has that right anymore to resist extradition to another state. But if you raise unique, novel constitutional issues, those haven't been litigated. And it would be a win-win for DeSantis. He could look good standing up for the Constitution. He could look good standing up against politicized processes. He could look good to Trump supporters by standing up for Trump. And if he lost, well, no harm, no foul. He didn't have to go through with anything. And so it was politically incompetent of him to do so. But from what I've heard, talked about it today with Alex Jones earlier in the day, the reason DeSantis is even running is because he has been convinced that Trump will be taken out by all these criminal cases, that he was tipped off about Mar-a-Lago before it happened, did nothing to protest it or contest it at all. Now, he was legally limited in what he could do, but he didn't even file a protest with the Justice Department. The only reason he's running is because he's been convinced that Trump will be effectively kneecapped by these criminal cases. What he doesn't realize is it was a trick to get him to run, because by running, as George Soros himself said a month ago, the grand scenario is DeSantis runs, beats Trump, and because he beat Trump, he'll never be president himself. And what he's done is he's kneecapped his own career, and his statement today just further confirmed he's basically committing harikari, as I talked about in the Barnes brief today, which is too bad, because I otherwise like DeSantis. But this was a dumb move by him today.
And my perspective is, he could have defended Trump. He could have defended the rule of law, but he also could have preemptively defended himself, because if he thinks this is all about a hush payment to a porn star, well, wait until they start saying that DeSantis misused funds for, I don't know.
They already are. Remember, they're coming after him on the immigration type issues.
Yep.
So this is politically dumb. This was not the time to score your political points against Trump. You can save that for later. You can later on say, look, I don't get into these kind of troubles, so on and so forth. Fine. Make that a later spin. Take a shot at Trump. Have at it. Just not in this context. Wrong timing. Wrong. This is what happens. His wife is even more politically ambitious than him. They got Macbethian ambition tattooed on their forehead. And the deep state crowd has tricked them and deceived them using that vulnerability, using that vice against them to basically commit political suicide. I mean, that's what he's on path to do. Richard Barris was doing a poll this past week, and DeSantis is sinking like a rock. And it's going to get a lot worse now. And it's too bad because I think he had great potential. But he's blowing it up in live time. It's sad to see.
And people can say that you're a DeSantis hater because of what you're saying. But I got to tell people, like, even if you are a DeSantis hater, it doesn't mean that DeSantis couldn't listen to this and then actually, what's the word?
It's good
absorb it by
advice. It's just being smart.
No, it's like when I sit there criticizing Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party, and everyone's like, oh, you're hating on Pierre. Hey, he can listen to some of this advice and learn how maybe he can go court some of the PPC voters in Canada. It's the exact same thing here. This was a screw up. And I said, it's good if he was in the primaries and he wants to get the jab in there, but he doesn't realize he's not just throwing Trump under the bus. He's throwing himself under the bus. He might think he's, what's the word, gratiating himself with the liberal Democrat media because they all got a good chuckle out of it. They're going to come after him. He's going to be Hitler 2.0. He's going to be a bigger Hitler than they said Trump was a Hitler because he's banning gays and banning blacks in Florida. And he doesn't see that. He got his moment where he thinks he might be in the good graces of the media. That's going to last it's over and it's gone. And
but this is also just a joke. I mean, frankly, as a Harvard lawyer, he could have Dershowitz had put out his piece. Jonathan Turley had put out his piece. These are liberal Democrats saying what a joke of a prosecution this is. Mm-hmm. He could have used that Harvard law degree for something useful rather than just cutting sweetheart deals for child porn defendants like he did when he was an assistant U.S. attorney. There's a lot of things that a lot of us have been sitting on with DeSantis that if he's going down this route, well, okay, it's open door season, brother. This is it's going to be both ways now. This was dumb to take the bait on this. But it is to lay out the ridiculous, not just the Soros part of this, not just the political weaponization of it, but that this is not even, number one, not even a crime. That number two, that the indictment of Cohen proves it can't be a crime. It's that this prosecution will be in direct contradiction to that prosecution, the entire factual basis of it, which means Cohen either lied when he pled guilty to that or he's lying to the New York grand jury now. And then third, last, this is past the statute of limitations.
Well, that's what I mean. That's apparent. It's 7 years old. What's the statute of limitations? 5 years or 3 years?
Most applicable ones are 5 years. So and I know how New York's going to try to get around this. Now, for everybody out there, the court system in New York has been politically weaponized for forever. Every American court system has. What's different is they haven't done it against someone of this high profile. If they're willing to do this to Trump, they're going to do it to you. They're going to do it to anybody. Because if they can take Trump out, a billionaire former president of the United States and the leading opponent of the existing presidential candidate, by golly, they can run steamroll over me or you. That's why standing up for Trump is standing up for every American in this country. That's why it's a no-brainer. You can hate Trump all you want. You can't welcome or accept this prosecution. This prosecution is an endangerment to core constitutional liberties, period. And credit to Jim Jordan, who's going to subject the New York Soros-appointed, effectively, DA, to meaningful scrutiny and review, but there needs to be escalation. I've dealt with this in New York cases. Some people were suggesting Trump just made it up. Trump did not make it up. I guess people haven't been paying close enough attention to what we've been talking about now for a couple of months, which was once the Florida case fell apart, Mar-a-Lago fell apart because a white hat in the FBI, in my view, disclosed that Biden had even bigger problems. Mm-hmm. So then the January 6th fell apart because they couldn't get anybody to flip. They thought they'd get the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys or somebody to say, you know what, Trump really coordinated it, or Steve Bannon to say, Trump really coordinated in a secret meeting. He told us to do this and so on and so forth. They never got anybody to make that stuff up. Nobody did. So that was DOA and has been for a while now. So then that left at Georgia. Problem in Georgia is, one, he committed no crime. As Trump would say, perfect phone call. But there was no crime. Not only that, they thought Rudy Giuliani or somebody would rat or flip. They didn't. They came in and defended themselves aggressively to the committee. I knew a lot of the lawyers on the Georgia side and the other people involved in that. Trump did absolutely nothing wrong. The state of Georgia is who's in the wrong. And then, of course, they were dumb enough to put the grand jury foreman on CNN, and everybody realized this girl is batshit insane. Even Anderson Cooper was like, oh my, she's an embarrassment.
Should she
so
be
they knew they
talking
couldn't
about
go
this?
forward. And in Manhattan, they'd already turned down this case last year. Last year, the career prosecutors, I've dealt with them. I dealt with them in the Amy Cooper case. I dealt with them in other cases I can't talk about, but I've dealt with them on multiple occasions. And you got two kinds of people in the Manhattan DA's office. Old school career prosecutors. They're professionals, high-end people. They're very, very skilled. They're some of the best trial lawyers I've ever gone against. The lawyer I went up against in the Wesley Snipes, Bobby O'Neill, was trained and tutored by the famous Robert Morgenthau of Manhattan. This is the guy the show Law and Order was based on. They're very talented. But they're professional and they're smart. They're skilled. The upside is you can get good deals with them. The downside is they'll beat you up at trial. But there's that wing of it, and the other wing of it in the Manhattan DA's office is very political. And what tends to happen is the smart guys politically assign the career prosecutors to a political case, knowing they'll filter through what's legit and what's not, how to get a certain disposition when it makes sense, and so forth. They did. They looked at it last year, and they said, there's no crime here. There's no crime here. It's ridiculous to charge Trump. There's equal protection issues, selective prosecution problems, all the other issues. There's witness credibility problems, but there's just no crime here, period. He's a victim. David Letterman, when he was being extorted because he liked to get special treatment from his staff, Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky style, basically. That's how Dave Letterman saw his staff. He was like, hey, how you doing? It was that routine. So he wasn't prosecuted. The people trying to extort him were. So this was Trump. Remember, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, ultimate lawyer, Michael Avenatti, is in federal prison for extortion. I know some of the lawyers that were connected to her original effort to pitch Trump, and they're in the extortion business in L.A.
And by the way,
what the business is.
Avenatti extorted Nike in jail for 14 or 20 years. Stormy Daniels alleged, well, first of all, she sued Trump for defamation.
Even before that, during the campaign, basically said, hired some lawyers. Those lawyers, I don't think she knew quite what the score was. Not clear. There's a group of lawyers in LA. That's all they do is extortion. There's a whole tranny community in LA that all they do is extortion. So there's certain, celebrity names you can connect to that story. There's many celebrities you can connect to. That's their whole business model. Their whole lifestyle is based on extortion. Find a celebrity, get a bad video of them, boom, extort them. That's your business. That's their business model. There's lawyers. That's all they do. They work for these people and they extort people. That's all they do. And that's who Stormy Daniels was connected to in the original effort. So it was an effort to extort Trump. Trump didn't care about the campaign. He didn't care about the damage of Stormy Daniels on his campaign. He already had the Access Hollywood tape out there. He was concerned. So this had nothing to do with the campaign. He was concerned about his wife. Michael Cohen said, don't worry, I can fix it, because that's what he always said. I'm the fix-it guy. I'm the fix-it guy. The Trump's only mistake is you don't go to the local strip mall to find a surgeon. Don't go to a local strip mall to find a lawyer. All right? Just remember that. If you're hiring cheap, you're hiring bad. End of story. Just like doctors, lawyers, same dynamic. If it's cheap, you're already screwed, pal. That's just MO. Just learn that in advance. You get what you paid for. That part, Trump kind of had coming. Some of us had told him over the years, learn how to hire lawyers. But and he would hire great lawyers and he would hire terrible lawyers. And he just went back and forth because he thinks they're always scamming him and overcharging him. But the corporate types often are, but he misreads where he can go. But so Cohen said he was going to fix it. I don't think Cohen ever told Trump what was going on until later. Figured Trump would reimburse it because Cohen, like being indispensable to Trump as the guy who magically fixed things, came back to Trump and said, well, by the way, I actually paid her off so that this didn't become an issue. And can you reimburse me? And Trump was like, fine.